Hello and welcome to the WITS Classroom Reading Tutors training. Today we'll be talking about WITS as an organization, child development and early literacy, your role as a volunteer, and any next steps. WITS believes that when mentors focus their energy and time on the success of our city's students, their volunteer service directly impacts the lives of young people and helps support a better public school system. WITS has very grassroots origins, starting with just 2 volunteers in 1991. Since then, we've expanded greatly, now delivering 212 programs in Chicago public schools, serving over 2,500 Chicago public school students in 27 different schools, and all of this is thanks to our over 1,800 volunteers. WITS seeks to narrow the achievement gap in Chicago public schools. One of the sad realities is that a typical middle-class child enters first grade with approximately 1,000 to 1,700 hours of picture book reading under their belt. But this corresponding child from a low-income family would average just 25 hours. Also in middle-income neighborhoods, the ratio of age-appropriate books per child is 13 books for every 1 child. But in a low-income neighborhood, that ratio can be as low as 1 age-appropriate book for every 300 children. While the average student-teacher ratio in Chicago public schools is 25 to 1, classrooms can have many more students, making one-on-one reading time almost impossible for busy teachers. Approximately 88% of children who have reading problems in first grade will likely continue to have problems in 4th grade. However, the National Academy of Education Commission on Reading declared that reading aloud to children is the single most important activity for ensuring success in learning to read. WITS partners with schools all across Chicago. When we are choosing to partner with a new school, we look at demographics, the support of the administration, the climate, and we also choose to partner with schools that are at least 90% free and reduced lunch. It's also important to us to make sure that the administration is going to be welcoming of the WITS programs and supportive of our rigorous evaluation process. WITS has a portfolio of 7 programs, all promoting literacy in CPS. The goal of the Classroom Reading Tutors program is to improve students' reading skills as well as their positive perceptions of themselves as readers. Another goal of WITS is to build the home libraries of students. So WITS gives books twice a year, at the holidays and at the end of the year. This puts books in the hands of the students who participate in WITS programs, but also in their family members, siblings, and neighbors. There is a great deal occurring in the brain of students ages 5 to 8. The first and most important change is the shift where students become less egocentric. This means that they have the realization for the first time that those around them don't share their thoughts and feelings, that even though they are not feeling sad, someone else might be feeling sad. This leads to increased empathy. They learn how to comfort that person who's feeling sad. As they acquire more oral language, they start to express their thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs more clearly. They develop domain-specific knowledges and expertises. They become more interested in specific topics and learn more about them, whether it's cars or jungle animals. Improved memory and attention lead to being able to participate in activities for a longer amount of time the older that these students get. the older they get, they also become more conscious of the consequences of their own behavior, whether it's consequences for themselves or others. Peer relationships also become much more important in elementary school, as they realize how they fit into the social hierarchy around them. They're starting to master that self-regulation, where they're able to delay gratification and wait for something that they're looking for. They're also learning how to tolerate difficult feelings and deal with those in healthier ways. However, they are still relying on the adults and mentors in their life to help them work out these problems. And remember, it always depends. Every student is different, and every student is developing at a different rate. In the past, we've called this program Classroom Assistance, but this year we're calling it Classroom Reading Tutors for the first time. The reason we made this change was to better reflect the goal of the program to increase literacy in CPS and in the students that our tutors are working with. The program is a weekly literacy program where volunteers work alongside a teacher to promote literacy in the classroom. It's our program where volunteers are the most integrated into the classroom and working the most with the teacher. We ask that volunteers spend at least 2 hours reading with students one-on-one or in a small group. However, we have many volunteers who go above and beyond this commitment. It also offers flexible scheduling so that the teacher and the volunteer can decide on the best time for reaching the students who need their help. WITS will set up a meeting with the classroom teacher where the volunteer will be placed so that the WITS staff, the teacher, and the volunteer can go over expectations as well as scheduling. WITS also provides a classroom tutor's reading log that volunteers can take notes on the students they're working with or just log their activities. We hope to learn from what you're doing in the classroom. There's also supplemental activities that you might find useful when reading with students to improve their comprehension. The building blocks of reading are vocabulary, comprehension, and phonics. These are the 3 things students need to master in order to have a successful reading experience. Vocabulary is both understanding the words they're reading and knowing what they mean. So oral language is so important as students begin learning to read. The more oral language and the more oral vocabulary they have, the stronger they are going into reading. Phonics is the connection between letter sounds and the written letters on the page. Students aren't going to be able to read words if they don't know what sounds those letters make. As they progress in their reading, they start to learn how those sounds and letters work together to form word patterns and more complicated words. Finally, comprehension is putting those together and understanding what you've just read. A student may sound out a paragraph perfectly, but not understand what they've just read. Elementary readers are working on many different literacy skills to improve in their reading. They have to be able to identify word patterns or chunks to put into larger words when they're sounding out words. But there's also words they can't sound out, which are sight words. They have to know what they look like right away. You're never going to be able to sound out THE because it's a rule breaker. You have to know right away that that's the word the. They're also working on their comprehension skills and being able to understand more complex stories and informational texts. Vocabulary is a huge factor in this, especially when it comes to nonfiction and content-specific vocabulary. They're also starting to use text features. For younger students, this could be something as simple as what is the author's name, who is the illustrator, what does the illustrator do. But as students get older, this means using the table of contents and things like an index and a glossary. Finally, they have to work on using expression when reading out loud. You'll find many elementary readers reading in a monotone voice, Our volunteers have the chance to be able to be great models of fluent and expressive reading. Here are some strategies that you can use when reading with students during the Classroom Reading Tutors program. It's very helpful to pick just right books. If your teacher has the students' reading levels, use this to help you determine what books fit into that category. If a student has a reading level of H, that means that's their instructional reading level, or what they're reading with 90 to 95% accuracy. If they're reading in their instructional reading level, that means they can read it, but need a little bit of support. That's perfect. If they have a book that's in their frustration level, something that they're reading with 90% accuracy or below, they're just going to be frustrated, and they're not going to be able to practice their reading skills that they're there to work on. As students begin reading, help them use pictures to help them understand what's going on in the story. Lots of information comes from the text and the words, but there's other information that can be found in the pictures. If they don't know a word, they can use the pictures to help fill in that gap. Sounding out words or making a guess based on the first letter is often helpful when they get to a word they don't know. What would make sense and also start with the B sound, and they can figure out, oh, well, bunny makes sense, not the word breakfast. If you see your student getting tired or starting to become frustrated, it's very helpful to take turns reading. You don't want them to be struggling through a text that's in their frustration level. So you read a chapter or you read a few pages to give your student a break and a time to get back into the reading mindset. If the student makes a mistake and figures out a word, have them go back to the beginning of the sentence so that they can understand that new word in the context of the sentence. Reading with a fun voice is a great way to model fluent reading, but it's also very important for showing how fun and interesting reading can be. Giving vocabulary clues about what words and what types of content words are going to be in the book beforehand is very helpful. If you're reading a book about the Wild West and you have previewed words like gallop and horses and cactus, they're going to be more familiar and more successful when they come to those words in the text. Asking comprehension questions before, during, and after reading is so helpful for developing comprehension skills. Making predictions, using the cover illustration to make a prediction about what the book is going to cover. Making connections to the character and how they were feeling, and if they ever felt the same way, if they ever went through a similar situation. And just relating their favorite parts and what they thought was most interesting can be really helpful for helping a student connect with the text. Here are some helpful questions and activities that you can do with students during each part of the reading process. Before reading, you can preview the vocabulary and talk about what the student already knows in their background information in whatever topic, story, or author that you're going to be reading. During reading, ask the students to make predictions and connect to the text. Sentences where they're stumbling or having tricky words, have them reread that several times so that they really internalize that hard word that they've decoded, or they've been able to internalize the tricky message. After reading, using writing or drawing is a great way to connect and internalize what they've just read. We also have comprehension activities and graphic organizers in your WITS Classroom Reading Tutors log that you might find helpful for this part of the reading. You can also ask the student questions, how they connected and what they enjoyed or didn't enjoy about the book. Before you ever start reading with your student, forming a relationship with them is key. Use positive reinforcement. When they do something right, praise it, and praise it specifically. It's fine to say, good job, but it's even better to say, good job, I like how you sounded out that word, or "Wow, that book was tough, but I'm very impressed how you stuck with it till the end." Students are going to need to hear things over and over to be able to take away the message. This is true with strategies and academic topics, but it's also true with behavior. Students who are in kindergarten, first or second grade may need a reminder to sit still or not to talk every few minutes. It's not because they're being disobedient. Their brains just have to hear things over and over to be able to internalize them. Make eye contact with your student and be enthusiastic. That shows them that you're excited to be working with them. Another great strategy is to give choices. Their options are to read out loud to you or for you to read out loud to them. If you just say, "Do you want to read?" they have the option of saying, "No, I don't want to read." But if you give them options that you've pre-selected, then they're not able to opt out of that reading time. You can say, "Do you want this book or that book?" so they still feel like they have a choice in what they're doing. You want to set the expectations up clearly that you are there to read with them and to help support them as they develop their literacy skills, and then praise them when they work hard in these efforts. It's also really helpful to tap into what a child's interested in. If they love sharks and ocean life, then find all books about sharks and ocean life so that they're able to practice these important reading skills while learning more about what they really love. WITS has several expectations of our classroom reading tutors. We obviously expect you to feel comfortable being in the classroom environment and tutoring and mentoring these students. We want you to be open and caring and excited to work with the students. We do ask that you're able to commit for the entire rest of the school year, not just a set of 1 or 2 months. We do ask for consistency, that you're able to come to 80% or more of the agreed upon sessions. We also want you to track your activities in the volunteer log, just with a tally mark of what you've done. There are also a few WITS policies that we go over just as housekeeping items. Of course, child abuse and neglect is something we take very, very seriously. So if you notice something that concerns you, please reach out and talk to us as soon as possible. It's a CPS policy as well as a WITS policy not to be alone with your student. If they need to go to the bathroom or to leave the room, let the teacher handle that. We ask that you not contact your student outside of WITS, and this is just as much a measure to protect you as it is the students. We ask you not to check your phone while you're working with your students. It sends the message that you're not fully engaged. We ask you not to give gifts or candy to the students. And also contact us if you have any questions or concerns. Finally, we just need the volunteer agreement form with your information to keep for our records. You will need to be fingerprinted at accurate biometrics before you begin working in the classroom. This is a CPS policy. And we would like to schedule a brief 10-minute phone call to go over the information in the training. Christine or Jenny will be contacting you very soon to set this up. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and we look forward to a successful year in the Classroom Reading Tutors program.